This is the Tree of Life, Season 5, Chapter 2. In this episode, we will be talking about the standard level of reciprocation, which permits the equilibrium described in Season 4, Chapter 8, mediated by the Internet and through lateral reciprocated action. As explained in Season 4, Chapter 8, there are two distinct equilibriums created by two distinct relative ratios of cortisol and oxytocin corresponding to two distinct equilibriums of body homeostasis. In one, which is mediated by oxytocin regulated by the Internet and through social media, as well as lateral action through direct intersection with other actors mediated by the Internet, oxytocin levels are conditioned by reciprocation regulated by the system of control. In the second, determined with a higher weighting of cortisol, is created by deference, or the direct activation of the sympathetic nervous system by adrenaline production, which causes bursts of cortisol, shutting down the thyroid, reducing testosterone. The first equilibrium is associated with nonlinearity and lateral action, with higher rates of encoding of epigenetic information locally. The second is associated with lower rates of encoding of epigenetic information, linear action. Although in past episodes, we talked about how the first equilibrium is associated with spatial non-consensuality, and the second is associated with archetypal consensuality. However, this is not always true. The existence of a spatial non-consensual state is hormone-dependent, being described by a faster thyroid and higher rates of epigenetic encoding. This state can be produced in either equilibrium 1 or equilibrium 2, depending upon rates of reciprocation and oxytocin and cortisol levels. Just as an archetypal consensual state can fall into equilibrium 1 or equilibrium 2, depending upon rates of reciprocation and cortisol levels, i.e. deference. Which is to say, there are ways of breaking deference and thereby artificially reducing cortisol levels such that what might ordinarily be one equilibrium state, or a linear state, may be replaced by a nonlinear one. Likewise, it is also clear that what might be described as breaking deference is associated with glitching techniques, which represent a mutant strategy, which departs from the evolutionary stable strategy, which describes the reciprocation of the Internet, a lateral action-mediated equilibrium. It is clear that a spatial non-consensual actor ordinarily possesses higher fitness in new environments than an archetypal consensual actor due to higher rates of encoding of new epigenetic information in that environment. However, what is also clear is that an archetypal consensual actor has the benefit of a distinct in-group strategy of tit-for-tat within that in-group to ensure equal fitness within the out-group corresponding to a new environment. In other words, lineal relationships generate tit-for-tat displacement events. The first event representing a loss of fitness for one linearly related individual, and the second representing a gain, and vice versa. Thus we can see that these lineal relationships, that is, within an in-group, represent a distinct evolutionary strategy affirming fitness. Thus, we can see that although spatial non-consensual actors possess a higher overall fitness in new environments, archetypal consensual actors, reliant upon a distinct strategy within an in-group than beyond it, assure themselves a higher level of fitness within the out-group where the spatial non-consensual actor is ordinarily better equipped. So, although there are two cortisol, oxytocin, equilibriums corresponding to two homeostatic equilibriums available to social participants, there are in fact two distinct strategies at play within the system as a whole. If you count the techniques included in this podcast, they might also be described as a mutant strategy, beyond that of the strategy of a spatial non-consensual actor and an archetypal consensual actor. Although it can be said that that of the archetypal consensual actor may be an older strategy, which is now being replaced by the Internet-mediated reciprocation, mutant strategy, which determines oxytocin levels by way of regulation by the Internet and lateral action through the system of control. It can be said thus, that nothing is determined, that everything is possible. For if the archetypal consensual strategy is on the way out, being replaced by the mutant strategy of Internet-based reciprocation, then so too is it possible for a subsequent strategy, to become the evolutionary stable strategy within the system as a whole. That's the end of the podcast for today.